How are you feeling today?
Good. I feel good. It's cold,
Yeah.
but I'm good.
Where are you right now?
I'm in Kansas City. It is 20 degrees and snowing.
I heard the barbecue's good out there.
It's amazing. If you're into meat, if you're a vegetarian, I wouldn't recommend Kansas
Oh,
City as a stop.
this is not one of those podcasts. I think it's a Gordon Ramsay thing. Yeah, tell us about who is Amanda Pierce. Give us a little brief history on you.
Amanda Pierce is a student. I'm about to graduate. So that is a very big part of me. Choosing to study environmental science, it took a long time to get there. I'm a non-traditional student, so I'm 29, and it's all the earth has always been my passion. It's what has led me in all of my travels of going to like natural places and camping and trying to like volunteer in underdeveloped countries. Yeah, is pretty much my sole purpose. I feel like on the earth is to protect the earth and fight climate change and everything. But besides that, I'm a sister. I have a younger sister. I have two parents. They live here in town. I'm a single mom to two amazing dogs. And yeah, I'm just like really getting my life together finally. So I will have a better answer to that question in 5 years.
I'm 40 years old and I still haven't got my life together, so you have plenty of time.
Thank you.
We actually met through a mutual friend. Devin Mercier is a previous guest on the show, and he recommended that we have a chat because there's a lot of you have a very unique story, not just about you, but about your relationship with him, which we can get into later in the show. But yeah, tell us about your history with depression and mental health.
My history has been a very long one. I unfortunately lost my innocence to depression and anxiety at a very young age. I lost my virginity at 14 and I was raped. And then I kept that in for 2 years. And then I finally told my a couple of friends at school and my family. And then less than a year later, it was being published in the underground school newspaper, along with a whole bunch of other secrets from other girls. And high school sucked. I was a gymnast, a varsity gymnast. So I was like very straight edge, really all straight A's and didn't drink or smoke or do anything. And then I went to college and had some fun and made some mistakes and failed out. Had to have those conversations with my family. Being the older of two daughters, I was like supposed to be the role model. And I have been sexually assaulted 4 times in my life over the course of since 14 until I was 24. And I didn't talk to people about it, and I didn't go to therapy, and I didn't use the resources that were provided. And so I turned to alcohol and cocaine and partying and definitely struggled with that. I had a 30-day stint in rehab in LA. I've had I spent the 30-day stint in rehab in LA after I ran away with the love of my life and then he committed suicide in our bathroom in the hotel in Mexico. That was a pretty traumatic event. And then like 2 years later, I was beaten within an inch of my life by an ex-boyfriend. And then he committed suicide the next day. And like his
Wow.
suicide note was basically like an I'm sorry and I love you letter. And almost losing my life really just snapped me out of this victim mode I had been in for so long of just I can't do anything for myself. If I try to do something, like somebody's just going to knock me down and take it away. And I just, it was just so close to death. It was a wake up call. And but I still drank and I still smoked and I still tried to tell myself that I like am okay, or I'm not an alcoholic anymore because like I've got a full-time job and I'm making money and I'm doing the steps in life that you're supposed to be doing. And I got a boyfriend, I got engaged, I got married Devin, and then, but still, it was just like the underlying unhappiness of not just being mad and like dealing with it. And I'm just now almost 30 days sober again. And
That's awesome.
yeah, this time it was like not, oh, I'm gonna do this. It just, I was so busy with life, I just haven't had time to. And then I've been so tired at night, and then I just go to bed. And now, almost 30 days sober, I'm just feeling a lot of things that I haven't felt before, and realizing that, and this podcast has just come at such a crazy, perfect time of realizing how long I've been depressed since I was 14.
I have no words for what I just heard. That's heartbreaking to say the least. And there is so much to unpack there.
That's the
Let's,
summarized version.
yeah, wow. Let's go back to when you were 14. Prior to what happened to you, were you happy-go-lucky kid? Were you depressed? Were you like, how were you prior to this event happening to you?
I was shy and very like energetic and full of life, and just like wanting to, I was just like, it was like a kid who drank coffee all the time, but I never drink coffee. I was just like ready to go and like excited about doing things, and really just like innocent and playful, and just thinking back of just some of the stupid things my girlfriends and I would do, and like the music I would listen to. And it was just so childlike and playful. And then, and like even in my teens, like I'd been a teenager for 2 years, and I felt like I got along with my parents pretty well. My dad and I, we've had a pretty rough relationship, but still I was happy. And like I would go on family vacations, and I had an amazing huge backyard that I would play in all the time. And I was always barefoot, and like always. My mom called,
As most Earth lovers are.
yes, my mom called me rock sticks and dirt girl because she'd wash my clothes and there'd just be stuff coming out of my pockets.
Yeah.
And then I met a guy who was 3 years older than me, and I was trying on my very first competition leotard that I got from Shining Mission East. I was on the gymnastics team. I was a freshman and I was on varsity, and it was like I was the only freshman. I just felt really cool. And this guy was hanging out outside of the gym when I left, and I thought he was really hot. He honestly looks like a spitting image of Colin Farrell. And
Colin Farrell now or young Colin Farrell?
young Colin Farrell.
Okay.
Like SWAT Colin Farrell.
Okay, that makes sense.
And he was just a sweet talker and a really good manipulator. And I it was always the, why don't you sneak out and come hang out with me? Like I can't be seen with you thing. And he was like the
Yeah.
first guy who really showed me attention, and I just didn't know any better.
You have this horrible thing that happens to you. You're sexually assaulted at 14 years old. As a teenager, how, after that, let's take the immediately to a month later, how were you trying to process that in your head? And what were you thinking?
Sorry, let me shut this door. My dog's chewing on a bone.
Sure.
I think I wasn't processing it because I was drugged, and it happened when I was passed out. I was date raped. I And like I woke up and there was the condom next to me, and I was naked, and I was just like, I think I know what happened, but I'd never had sex before, so I didn't know. And then he was like, just go home and take a shower and just talk to
Wow.
me like he talked to me like he confirmed what he had did. So I didn't think there was something wrong. And I didn't think anything bad had happened to me until 6 months later when I found out he had slept with another girl and given her an STD.
Wow.
And I didn't get it, but I didn't even know he was seeing anybody else. It was just such an eye-opening moment for the whole dating world in general. Just people can see multiple people at one time, and you didn't have that conversation with him.
Yeah.
I was just young and in
Yeah.
love, or I thought I was, at least. I was infatuated.
Did you tell anyone after it happened? Did you tell a friend?
No.
No one? How long did you internalize that for?
For 6 months, yeah, I held that in. And then I told one friend,
Wow.
and then 6 months later, I told my mom.
Wow. How'd your mom react?
My mom handled it very well. My mom is a nurse and is an incredible nurse, and she has had lots of experience with having to like give difficult news and then also speak to family members about stuff like that. So she just processed it, sat and listened and processed it and held eye contact with me and didn't get mad at me and didn't scold me for sneaking out and or didn't get mad at me for not telling her for so long. Just really apologized for that it happened to me that way. And her reaction is, I think, the moment that I realized how dramatic of a situation it was. That this man like took something from me. And then all of this like anger I had been feeling of just like, why doesn't he like me more? And all this stuff. It just like all of these why questions clicked and made sense because he never did. He never did it. And he never felt any of those things.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he just sounds like an all-around piece of shit,
Oh, the
to be
worst.
honest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you, not to get too deep in the story, but did you ever get closure from what happened?
Unfortunately, no. And I have ran into him 2 times since. He ended up going to Pitt State, so I ran into him one time there because I went there too. And I didn't know that he had gone there. And then I ran into him at a house party at a friend's of mine when I was like 22 or 23. And he tried to pet my dog, and I like slapped his hand away and was like, "Don't fucking touch my dog." And just had a real overly aggressive moment over just petting a dog in the kitchen in
Yeah.
front of everyone. And I was like shaking. I was just like boiling with rage inside of me. And like people could see that I didn't like this person for more than what was happening. And he was asked to leave. So that felt good. But there's never been any like, you got in trouble for this.
Yeah. Yeah. It's unfortunately you hear that story way too often.
Yeah,
Yeah.
too
Like
many.
it's
I tried to pursue another one, and the prosecuting attorney called me and said, basically, this is a he said, she said case. And even though we have his sheets and your clothes with both of your DNAs all over everything and other people corroborating my story, they're like, basically, you don't really have a case, and we could go through with this, and there's a 50-50 chance you could win. And if you don't win, then you're going to have to pay all of your court fees. And I was like, this is not very,
wow. Wow.
yeah. And so I was not very convinced that I was going to win, so I didn't pursue it.
Ah, the world we live in, huh?
Yeah.
And you said that this happened four separate times, right? H- I don't even know how you process that one time, let alone four. Like, how do you internalize something like that? Do you just accept it and move on?
It
Does it
changed.
change your energy?
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think I internalized it. It changed me. It changed my sexual patterns. It changed my sexual behavior. It changed for a period of time there. I was experimenting with thruples and just having multiple partners and trying to balance that and not like a sort of I'm not telling the other person it was like a very open communication sort of thing. I have webcammed for several years, for about 5 years, long before it was a cool thing to do during the pandemic. And I don't know, like I felt like this, like there was power. Sex became a power play. And so for a long time, I just viewed it as that. And I held the power. And so that's how I kept control of the situation. But when it comes to, I'm still just like a diehard one guy, one girl, or one of whatever's just a monogamy. I'm a big fan of monogamy. And that's like truly what I want is like that just all encompassing love. And so it has been a challenge in that area because sexually I have a big appetite. And I think it's because of these experiences I've had, have just let down the walls. And sometimes I've just said, fuck it. And I've experienced new things. And so I have a broader want now. And not a lot of people can keep up with that.
At least some positive came out of that.
Yeah.
If you put it that way, I don't know if that's the right terminology for it. But so
It's
you met a
definitely been a
guy.
challenge, so.
Yeah. You met a guy and you ran away. Tell me about that.
I didn't meet him. I knew him my whole life. And he came and stayed at my house and was working for my dad. And he was 11 years older than me. He was 37 when we left together. I can't do math right now. I was 26. And he came and just he was taking a break from doing his big IRS job. He was an auditor. Had just came back from overseas. He was auditing a military base, and he was just wanting to do some. My dad owns his own construction business, and he's wanted to do some hard labor and spend some time with Greg, and came and stayed at our house for about 2 months. And in that time, one thing led to another, and because we were just spending a lot of time, the two of us, and then the night that we hooked up, my mom walked in on us. It was so embarrassing.
What?
Oh, so we got in the car and we left. And we drove and drove, and then we're like, hey, let's drive to Gulf Shores, Alabama. And so we drove to the beach and then just stayed around the coast and traveled around for a while and decided to go to Mexico. And we lived in Mexico for 2 months on the beach in Mexico, and it was like in Tulum. It was just one of the most incredible experiences of my life. And both of us had our drinking issues, and both of us had our depression issues as well. He had been sexually assaulted as a child by a male church leader, and
Yeah.
for years and years. And then when he tried to tell his family, they just like in one ear and out the other it. And so he had dealt with it a lot longer, and he had struggled with sexual identity. And just the two of us, we were just like, here is everything. And here's who we are and what we want. And it just clicked and it was perfect. And he got to like experience who he wanted to be, and he wore what he wanted to wear, and he changed his name, and not legally, just I.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
And we didn't actually like legally get married, but we wore the rings, and we bought at pawn shops, and because that's all that we needed. And we left the beach where we were camping to come back into town, gather some supplies, and then we were going to buy flights and go to Ecuador and start helping build this like self-sustainable farm there. And he got really drunk and hung himself in our bathroom.
Wow.
And it was the dumbest door. It was like a thick metal door with a latch deadbolt from the inside. And so you couldn't even bust it down if you wanted to. I don't even know how I got the door open, but it was like 45 minutes later. I'm like trying to speak the best Spanish I can, trying to get people to come up and help me. And thank God, like somebody did come and help me, and both of us like broke the door down. I tried to give him CPR, but he had, I don't know how long he had been, his lips were already purple. And so that the guy who helped me was there from there and spoke fluent Spanish, so he like called the cops and everything. And then I called my parents on FaceTime and just was like, Dan's dead. I don't know what to do. And they just sprung into action and called the embassy, and an English speaking person from the embassy came, and I like went catatonic. I like looked over when I was on the phone with my mom, and I like saw his legs out from the bathroom, and I turned it off. I literally just turned my emotions off like a flip of a switch and was like, I can't actually process anything that's happening right now. And they're like, where do you want to go? You can go to a hotel tonight or you can go to a hospital. Sorry, I have to plug my computer. And I said, take me to a hospital because I
Yeah.
should probably not be alone right now. And I stayed there once I got there and the guy from the embassy left, I started being hysterical and not knowing how to process it. And so they gave me a shot of ketamine and knocked me out for 24 hours until my sister came there. She was on the other side of Mexico. How she was there at the same time, it was a miracle, but it took her like 24 hours
Yeah.
to get there, and she speaks fluent Spanish, so she was able to like communicate with the doctors. And then 4 days later, I was back in the States. It was the craziest culture shock of my life. And the whole thing from
Wow.
start to
Yeah.
finish was 4 months.
Did you have any idea that he was going to do anything?
No.
No.
He had talked about obviously the urge from the past, and I have too at points. He was just such a crazy strong person, like such a rock that to this day I'm even just still dumbfounded. And January 22nd, it was officially 5 years. And I'm just still
Wow.
like, how did that even happen?
So the second really big traumatic event happens to you, and then you go back to the States, you're with your family. How do you cope with that? What, were you emotionally broken? Were you just like trying not to think about it?
I was
What was,
emotionally broken. I've never felt pain like that before, like heartbreak like that. I literally didn't know if it was ever going to end. I didn't know. I didn't talk for a very long time. I like literally just didn't speak words. I was like in an absolute catatonic state. I'm sorry, 1 second.
sure.
And I stayed up most of the night because I hated being awake during the day. It was like summertime in the sunshine. It was like it's just too happy. And so I would drown myself in the bottom of a bottle of vodka, and I would sleep all day and stay awake all night, and I would just watch movies. Movies like were my therapy. I needed to be not in my own world. I needed to dive into somebody else's world and just be not here. And
Yeah.
I made a whole bunch of jewelry. I started wire wrapping jewelry, and I was like a crackhead with jewelry. I just made hundreds of pieces of jewelry. And and then the first time I decided to like leave the house and go out and do something was like 6 months later. First, my family shipped me off to rehab. I was home for two
Wow.
weeks and then they shipped me off to rehab.
Wow.
Yeah. And they regret that. We've had a lot of conversations about that because I wasn't allowed to speak to any of my family members. I was cut off from everything and everyone. That was like another culture shock on top of the one I just had 2 weeks before. And so that was a mistake. It was helpful to be sober. I'm glad I was sober during that time. It was what I needed. But yeah, I definitely needed my family too. And then when I got back from that 30 days, I continued my silence jewelry making. And 6 months later, I decided to go to this thing that they have downtown here in Kansas City called First Fridays. And like the first Friday of the month, a whole bunch of people just set up tables and sell whatever that is that they make at home. And I did that, and I finally got out, and I lost my voice for talking for 2 hours because I had just been so silent for so long.
Yeah.
And I don't know, that was like the first moment, and I like felt good, and I smiled, and I had conversations about nobody knew anything about my life, and I felt okay, this is one step in the right direction. But
You could be anybody you want at that point in time talking to people.
exactly.
Yeah. No one knows anything you've previously been to. You're just somebody selling some jewelry.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
there's never a day that goes by that I'm not angry and sad and missing him. Like, he's still absolutely the love of my life. Will probably always be.
How, so on a day-to-day basis, when you think about these things and it triggers some emotions for you, like how do you manage these? Do you just again internalize it? Do you go to therapy? What do you do?
Unfortunately, I internalized it for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I internalized it for a long time. My skin would break out, like my hair would start to thin because I was so stressed. Like you could just physically see. I was like physically getting sick. Like my body was hurting and like I was just like ill because I was just manifesting it from the inside and just holding it all in and not dealing with it. Mainly because I didn't think people cared or knew what to say. Because for so many times I would go and look to somebody for anything, just say anything. And it was just like silence, or I don't know what to say, or this is just really hard. I have no idea. And it was just disappointing. So I just learned to also stop seeking or looking for somebody else to fill a need that I probably should fill myself. And I kept telling myself that drinking was an issue. But then the good things, when I like physically was just like, I have so much anxiety, I'm gonna like crawl out of my skin right now. I can't internalize it anymore. Going outside, and I can't say the word, but going on a WALK with my dogs, they'll freak out if they hear the word.
Mine too.
But going on that with them, just like holding my little dog Jack here. He's
Oh,
always by
cute.
my side. I just,
Hey, little buddy.
yeah, he's the best. He's a big cuddle bug, and they're just so in tune with my emotions. There's been times where I've had to go into my bathroom and cry because they'll perk up and they'll be right there, like ready to lick my face. What's wrong? Are you okay? So
Yeah.
I know that I always have them. It's not words. Sometimes they need words, but
I think that's an issue we have as a society right now is when somebody does go through like a traumatic event, we don't know how to talk to people about it. Like this is like the stigma that they might not want to talk about it, but it's like you still got to make a step in the right direction. Hey, you just gone through some shit. Let's talk about it. Get it off your chest. Are you okay? You should just start with that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I actually, there's a TV show and a movie that both do this where that happens and the person's like, how about you just ask me who they were and what you loved about them, or just tell me about them. It was like when he died, then everything died. It's just we don't talk about it anymore. So we can talk about
Yeah.
good memories. It's not like he's a dead subject, like off, like we can't talk about it ever. And it doesn't always have to be like, what are you sad about? It could be good things too. And like memories or whatever. Show me pictures from your trip or, and yeah, I've found that I'm making it a criteria of mine in the friends and the lovers who want to be in my life. If you want that label or to be that close to me and get the benefits of my friendship too, then you got to be able to talk to me about some stuff. So that's just
Yeah.
a new requirement I've made and started asking for.
I think that should be a requirement of all people. You come into a relationship with a past and relationships and people that you've come across and memories, and you can't just check those at the door when you come in and say, hey, I'm starting fresh. Just no, this is me, accept me for who I am. No.
And that way I don't give too much of myself to somebody else and then I don't get the same back. That's just been the other thing that's depleting on top of fighting depression is also I want friends in my life and I've felt loss and I don't want to lose more, but you're just sucking the life out of me at this point. Like this friendship is like work.
And then you met another guy and he beat you. What happened?
I re-met him. I went to high school with him. I didn't really ever hang out or talk to him in high school. He was dating a girl that ran with my sister and grew up like 5 minutes from me in the middle of Prairie Village, Kansas, and
Wow.
just was like a on paper and based off of his history and everything was a good guy. Like literally would have never seen this coming. And so it was like about 13, 14 months after Dan, him and I started talking, and then it was like 9 months later, we started dating, and we dated for a couple months, and he was actually on a house arrest for DUI. So he had 2 months left, almost 3 months left, and then he moved in with me because he was always just driving to my house because he had lived with his parents for this. So he had a whole
Yeah.
bunch of furniture and stuff and was just like, let me move in. I had plenty of space. So I was like, great. And it was awesome. And it for 11 months, it was great. The only red flags that came up were when he had been drinking, he broke things. And like he broke the back porch railing and
Wow.
slammed a door and broke a window. And yeah, it just broke things. And it wasn't every time or all the time. There was like three specific times I remember in those 11 months. And then we would talk and like within an hour we're fine. It was like
Yeah.
just like a stupid misunderstanding. And then he had a big outburst one night and he had hit on my friend who had came over. And it was so weird and out of character. And she left and I was like, "What the hell was that?" And he was like, "It's because you're flirting with." And I was like, "No, I'm not." And he had misunderstood a text and I like let him look at it and like he saw that he had obviously been wrong. And I don't know why the fight continued to escalate. I think it was because he was wrong and he didn't want to be wrong.
Yeah.
And then like even though if he was right about it, it would have been bad for our relationship. It like didn't make any sense. And so I eventually just called his dad and I was like, "You need to come get him because I can't calm him down and he's gonna make a scene for the neighbors." And it's like midnight, almost 1 in the morning. And so his dad came and got him, and then 2 days later he moved out. And I need to take care of myself. I need to become a better man for you. I've got anger issues and it doesn't help when I've been drinking and that was really stupid and immature of me. And he was already 2 years younger than me. And so he was just like, I obviously need to be better. And I was like, don't move out. And I was all heartbroken and upset. And he moved out. And a week later, I was like, okay, you're right. You do have some stuff you need to work on. I just needed that space to see what he was
Yeah.
seeing.
You need some clarity.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then when I got that, I wasn't like super quick to letting him move back in. And
Yeah.
he got very upset about that. And then I was like, I think I might want to branch out and start dating around. And because all of this stuff that we've already, you and I have talked about, like I've been through some stuff. I'm not ready to just date you. I'm feeling I want to explore around and possibly be by myself if I want to.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was fine and whatever. And then he wanted to hang out. I think it was like a Saturday or Sunday when he was off work, go get lunch at the well and talk about us. And then he started drinking, and I had some drinks too. And the conversation started at noon, and we finally made our way back to my house. And by 10 o'clock at night, were sitting out by the campfire around at my house, still talking about us, basically just going back and forth. Me reminding him,
Yeah.
I just need some time. I just
Yeah.
need some time.
Like a broken record.
Yes. And I was being patient. It's 10 hours at this point. I'm like really trying to be patient because I still want him in my life and he wants to be in my life, but we just need to find another way. That wasn't working.
Yeah.
And I was like, I smell like smoke. It's getting late. I'm tired. I'm gonna go inside and take a shower. And I went upstairs and I turned on the shower and he comes up the stairs and is, oh, are you getting all ready to go to Carrie's house? And Carrie was a friend of mine I had been just hanging out with. And because I ran into him in a dog park like the week before. He had dated my sister for 3 years.
Oh wow.
Yeah, long,
Small world.
long time friendship right there.
Yeah.
And I was like, no. And that's when he grabbed me by the throat and started choking me up against the wall. And I was like, ow, you're hurting me, you're hurting me. Let go. And I like pushed him off of me and he walked out into the hallway. And he was like, it looked like he was like cooling off or about to walk down the stairs. But then he turned around and I saw him just see red and he pushed me and I like fell into the tub and hit my head. And I tried to get out of the bathroom. And from that point on, it was a 2 hour struggle of him beating the ever living shit out of me.
Jesus.
My face, he was a righty, and so he kept hitting my left side. But like my right face was like out to here, like the right side of my
Wow.
face. It was like this eye was swollen shut. There's a little scar right here. He broke my eye socket. That's the only thing that broke was my eye socket. I had 5 stitches. It's incredible. That is the only thing that needed stitching. But he spent probably 45 minutes of that 2 hours like trying to choke me to death. So like the bruising on, you couldn't really see like my neck. It was like my neck and my face were all just the same amount of swollen. And I just remember tried to book it for the front door one time from the upstairs, and it was like 10 stairs, a landing, and then another 10 stairs. And I didn't make it out the front door, and he choked me out on, and that's the only time I lost consciousness was at the front door. And then he grabbed me by my hair and carried me back upstairs by my hair. And it was like 30 minutes later, I finally was like, all right, you got to make it out of the house. Like you're going to go for the back door. And it was just so crazy how everything slowed down. I was just able to think so quickly in the moment. And I like was telling him everything. I was like, I'm not going to tell anybody. Just please don't kill me. Please don't kill me. He kept saying, I'm going to kill you and I'm going to kill myself out of guilt. I'm going to kill you and I'm going to kill myself. And then like I finally got him to stop. I was like, please, I won't tell anybody. I won't tell anybody. Please just don't kill me. Please don't kill me. Like totally manipulating him. And I was like, I needed him to leave the room for a second. So I was like, can you just give me some water and then we'll talk? And as soon as I heard him turn on the faucet, I ran downstairs. I was completely naked at this point, and it's November 11th, 2018, and it's snowing outside. And I like made it out the back door. He was like this fucking close to grabbing me. If I would have had a shirt on or something, he could have grabbed it. And I hurtled, like long jump, like hurtled over my back fence. And I remember thinking, right or left? There's somebody over here with two pit bulls. So I went right and I ran to their house. And I'm still friends with that girl to this day. Her name is Katie. And we actually hung out 6 months ago. But
Oh, wow.
she let me in. And when the cops came and were like, you shouldn't have let her in. And she's, of course, I'm going to let her in. She's standing there naked, like bleeding from everywhere. Like I was covered in blood. You looked like Carrie.
Wow.
Yeah.
What?
And I remember just sitting down and being like, it's over. And he had a breathalyzer in his car, so he couldn't have started his car. I don't know how he left my house, but he managed to make it home and then all the next day talk shit on me to his family, basically saying that I'm like the worst person in the world. And I still don't know how he killed himself, but then about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning that night, he killed himself. And I found out over Facebook because somebody messaged me over Facebook and is this true about Austin? And I was like, is what true? And I called his dad and yeah, he killed himself last night. And then he texted me the suicide note. And that was the last time I spoke to them.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm pissed because there's still moments where I'm just like, I really wish he was sitting in jail. But I just got a letter last week from Missouri Victims Compensation Fund, and they have paid for all of my medical bills. But it took almost 4 years.
I've been doing a lot of these interviews over the last few months, and I've never heard anything that just made me fucking speechless. I have
Wow.
so many questions. I just don't know what to ask right now.
I posted a thing on my Instagram 1 year later, because like hardly anybody knew about it. His dad is like a incredible art teacher at Rockhurst University here and
Yeah.
makes six figures doing art. He's a very good artist and it's like several generations deep in his family. And his mom is like some very high up person at Hallmark here on the plaza or at Crown Center. And so, very affluent white family who definitely tried to bury this. And they did it
Wow.
successfully. And they like taught, like, his older sister got married within the year after. And they just talked mad shit about me at the wedding and did not tell the truth. Did not tell the truth. And then I posted very graphic pictures, and I'm surprised they're still on Instagram, but they left them there. And I said the whole story in the caption, and it's still the most liked picture on my page. And people, you look in the comments, people are like, I had no idea. They did not say any of this. And just, I got a lot of support on the year anniversary. So if you wanted to
Let's.
check out the post, it's there.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to take a look at that if we ever finish up here. Wow. Let's go back to when the night you obviously you got away. He did horrendous things to you. What was that period of time like after it's over? But then he kills himself. What is going through your head? Like, how did that affect you? That can't be. That's a lot to take in.
Yeah. I immediately started crying because I felt bad for
Yeah,
him when I found out.
but he beat you.
I know.
That's
I felt
that.
bad that he thought that was his only way out. I know that there was plenty of other ways that he could have found redemption that would have been a lot harder, but he could have found it. At this point, I was sad for his little brother. I was sad for his little brother. Is like the only person in that family that I feel for. And yeah, I just know how much it sucks and how crappy it is to have somebody in your life just kill themselves. And when you, and even though I don't like any of his family or friends, it's still just like I'm still a person and I know how much it sucks to lose somebody like that. It's just never good in any situation. But then again, at the same
So,
time, I was just so relieved. I was so relieved because I can't imagine like the process of trying to put him in jail and fighting that very
yeah.
wealthy, well-connected family. Even though he did have a record like a mile long, I found out later that were mostly battery charges, like bar
Wow.
fights and stupid shit. But I can't imagine going through that process, having to see him in person. Because the guy who took my virginity, Jared, he's the only person I've ever seen after. I've never had to see any of the abusers, and I couldn't
Yeah.
have imagined seeing him again. I was afraid I would have gone through like a battered woman syndrome moment because when he would break shit at the house in the fights, I would stay with him and then he'd break shit again and I'd stay. So like I already had some of that and I like that was taken away. And the fact that if he was ever to get out of jail, I could have sentenced him. It would have maybe could have been only 3 years. And then he's sitting in jail for 3 years, coming up with a vendetta for me. Like I was paranoid. So I was glad that he was gone. I was paranoid from his family and his friends for the first year after of somebody
Yeah.
like coming after me and trying to finish the job. I didn't sleep very much. I was up like at 4 o'clock in the morning, always just like shooting up out of bed, like I'm awake. Nightmares every night.
Were you living by yourself at that point?
No.
No.
Carrie, my friend, he actually just let me move in with him. He,
Okay.
when I got to Katie's house that night and I sat down, I didn't have a phone and like I knew my dad's number, but I needed somebody to go get my dogs at the house because I left them
Yeah.
behind, which that just killed me.
It's amazing what your first thought is when you were in a situation like that, huh?
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
I was like, Katie, you need to Google Moondrop Circus and the owner of Moondrop Circus, call that number because that's one of his businesses is this circus, local Kansas City circus. And it's
Yeah.
how my brain was working in these ways, in these
Yeah.
moments, I'm still impressed with. But he grabbed my dogs that night and then he took me in and let me like stay because he lived 5 minutes with me and let me stay in the area. And then when I was able to move all my stuff out of that house because I it was an official crime scene, like I and then I couldn't really do much. I was like stuck on a couch. And then
Yeah.
once I
Yeah.
healed, I moved out to my dad's house in Belton a couple months later. And so I still to this day have to fall asleep with the TV on because it's just enough distraction to not let my mind go there. Otherwise, I close my eyes and it's straight flashbacks.
Did,
Relive, like, my heart will start palpitating, relive it over again.
did you seek any type of help after this happened, like any type of therapy or?
Yeah, EMDR helped a lot. I don't have any nightmares anymore. I'm not afraid of just like little things. Like if somebody comes up to you and is, hey, what's up? Just like play and they don't even touch you. That was like, whoa, okay, you can't even do that. Like playful, like punching, whatever. Like I'm not sensitive to that anymore. Yeah, quite a bit of the PTSD, except for right when I'm about to go to sleep, is gone through EMDR. That was very helpful.
Okay. Wow, that's a lot.
I know.
That is, and the fact that you're smiling today is just like it's a testament to like how strong and how far you've come.
Thank you.
I know a lot of people that wouldn't have half the strength that you have. You
There's
know?
too much reason to live still. That,
Yeah.
even though it was a horrible, awful experience, there was a moment where he was choking me and I saw my blood on the wall and I was like, I'm not gonna fucking die here. I'm not dying like this. This is not how it's happening. I have way too much shit
Yeah.
to do.
That's
And
not the end of your story.
yeah, and so now, and
Yeah.
I don't know, it's just, that's kept me going.
let's talk about Devin. And as most of Devin's a friend of mine, we go back in the day from playing Call of Duty together, and we reconnected when he moved out to LA to work for a very dysfunctional mutual acquaintance
Yep.
of ours. But tell us about your relationship with Devin.
I met Devin when he was bartending at Bar K, this dog bar here. It's a dog park with a bar.
He told me about that. That actually sounds amazing.
It is, and it's like such a hot spot. Oh my gosh, it's incredible how successful it
Yeah.
is. And within the first 5 minutes, he asked me, "How are you doing?" And I was just like, I'm okay. I'm good." And he's like, "How about a real answer instead of one of these like fake answers that everybody gives all the time? Like, how are you really doing?" And this was April, and everything happened with Austin in November. I was like, honestly, my boyfriend committed suicide about 6 months ago, and just there was a lot of stuff that happened with that, and just seriously processing it. So you wanted to know the answer. And I had a beer or two and just was like, fuck it. He's asking for the truth, so I'll give him the truth. And oh, my mom committed suicide 4 months ago. And I was like, who is this person who can talk to me? Nobody has been able to talk to me in years with Dan and now Austin. And this person is like not afraid of this conversation and actually has a relatable story. And wow, haven't met anybody like that in a while either. And we just started talking, and other people would come up and try to get beers, and he would just like, be serving them but also having a conversation with me. Not a very
Sounds
good
like Devin.
bartender thing to do. And neither of us cared. We were
Yeah.
just so wrapped up in whatever it is we were talking about. I could not tell you what it is now, but and it only lasted like 45 minutes, and then I was like, I've got to go, otherwise I'm just going to keep drinking. and and he was like, "Do you want to go out on a date sometime?" And I was like, "Sure." He's like, "How about Tuesday?" And I was expecting like on a weekend, some sort of like party thing or whatever. And I was like, "Sure, Tuesday's fine." And then we went out to sushi and went furniture shopping. And
Wow.
so it was just very different all at once, all at first. Is still a good listener. We, he likes weird things like I do. I like witchcraft, and he bought me like a
Yeah.
history on witchcraft book and just thoughtful like that. And then he also didn't drink and he didn't smoke and he never had an issue with that. It wasn't like I'm trying to be sober. It's just, oh, I've never done it. I don't really struggle with that. And that was a big thing for me. And then he's like, "Oh, I'm military." And I was like, "That's really cool. I've always admired people like that." And then he's got tattoos and he was hot. And I was like, "You're great on paper. You're great in person." And then "Let's get married." And it was like 2 months into it. And I was like,
Wow.
okay. And to be honest, at that point, since the love of my life was dead, I didn't think I was ever really gonna marry for love anyways. And here is somebody who is good and who said that he was gonna take care of me when I hadn't decided to go back to school yet, but I really wanted to. And just the thought of trying to take care of my own life and school at once, it just sounded so very overwhelming. And I will take care of you. Go to school. Like, I've got this. And then we got married, and then the pandemic happened, and everything changed.
Did you have any idea that he was depressed before you guys got married?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you guys talked about it.
I thought he knew.
Yeah,
It was so
yeah,
obvious. And
yeah,
the things that we had talked about before we got married and before he even asked me, I was
yeah.
like, the level of trauma in his childhood and the fact that his mom had committed suicide, which then we found out later she didn't actually.
I heard that too.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
crazy.
crazy.
And like
Yeah,
just the level of like unawareness from her aspect of like how she affected him, and then it makes sense now how unaware he was of how it affected him too. And but I just thought he knew. I thought he knew. And I thought that was one of the things that we had bonded on was like our traumas and the fact that we like still are dealing with them.
Yeah. How did you guys deal with that on a day-to-day basis? You both have had some really fucked up shit happen to you. You're gonna have good days, you're gonna have bad days, you're gonna have days where someone's good, someone's up, and then there's someone's down and not feeling great. Like, how did you guys manage that?
I'm a big communicator. I'm a big talker. I know how I'm feeling and what I'm feeling, and I know how to put it into words. And I know that I should say it now instead of boiling over and exploding later. So I just will start conversations and I would ask questions. And my father is a very emotionally unintelligent person. And I watched my mom for decades deal with that. And she found ways of working with that. They're divorced now. But when I was watching it, I learned,
Details.
yeah,
Yeah.
I learned new techniques. And so I used those and I just would ask a lot of questions and
Yeah.
would basically try to help him formulate some of the things that I was looking like answers that I needed. And instead of asking this like very big broad question and hoping he would like nitpick it and give me all this stuff. So our
Yeah.
conversations would last a long time. And then he was very good at telling me about what he needed to. Like the next day after a big, like an emotional conversation we might have had the night before, like he would say, I just like need today to recoup and recharge that battery. Like I'm emotionally depleted. And I knew that meant like I I couldn't be as needy as I maybe wanted to be that day or something. You know, it's a give and take. And then there was other days where I'm
Yeah.
like, I did not sleep last night and I had a really fucked up dream and I've been just like an emotional wreck since 2 o'clock in the morning. And I'm mad about things that I can't do anything about because he's dead and I can't put him in jail. So I just need like a hug or I need you to go to the park with me today or something. And we were good at asking each other for what we needed. And then we worked together too, so that was fun. We like were making the
Yeah.
same friends and we had the same things to talk about. And then yeah, and then the pandemic screwed it all up.
What changed during the pandemic? What, because when I spoke with Davin, he basically said that the way that he approached his depression during the pandemic changed the dynamic of your relationship. Like he stopped opening up, he stopped communicating, he just didn't really understand what was going on in his head. But like, how did you see that?
I saw that same thing. Not going to the gym. Going to the gym was also another thing we were doing together. I had the environmental thing I was bringing in the relationship, and he had the physical aspect, like the gym and working out, bringing it to the relationship. Because I hadn't worked out a lot since the whole thing with Austin, and I didn't feel really great about my body. And so, like, when we stopped working out, that really did a toll on his, like, just overall drive to get out of bed and do anything really. And
Yeah.
then it was like, okay, sleep to noon because what else am I going to do? And then I'll play video games because what else am I going to do? And then I was like, I'm still a productive person even when I don't have something to do. There's always something I can think of to do together or weird or fun or I don't know anything. Like we could play a freaking board game. But like I started when I wasn't getting the attention from him because he was sleeping or didn't want to, or he'd say, like, maybe later or whatever. I would call up my girlfriends on FaceTime and then we would sit and drink together. And I think that was like a kind of thing that happened everywhere, like Zoom happy hours and
Yeah.
people just all over social media of just how much booze everyone was drinking. And he's not a drinker and he's got a serious PTSD response with it because of his mom. And I thought that because we met at a bar and him serving me and the fact that he knew this about me and we talked about it and there was no indication I was never going to not drink just because of this thing that he had with it. I didn't realize that it was like traumatizing him, and he didn't tell me. And then he would just pull farther away. It was like he was becoming unattracted to me. And so then I was like, why is he not wanting to touch me? Like, why did we stop having sex? We like, there's nothing else to do. That's all we should be doing. and
Yeah.
and come to find out, like, it was slightly medical with testosterone levels, but at the same time, it was like, you've had a sex drive your whole life, and the sex between us was crazy and amazing. And then now all of a sudden it's gone. Wouldn't you want it back too? And so I stopped asking all those questions and crying. I was like wanting him to make some grown up decisions for himself and realize some of these
Yeah.
things and notice that I was now pulling away too, and I was unhappy, and he didn't notice. I still to this day, it really surprises me that he didn't notice. And even though I told him several times, there would be moments later where I didn't know that. And I'm like, I told you that I was unhappy.
Yeah. I remember him saying that the lowest point of his depression was when you guys split up. And I think it still affects him to this day. And a lot of things he wished he could take back. He said he wished he communicated more. He wished he told you things more. And I think that's also like a common thing across, especially people I've spoken to doing this podcast, is the communication when somebody is feeling depressed and the effect it has on your relationship. It really does wear people down. People don't know how to respond to it. It pushes people away. Like not just boyfriend and girlfriend, but personally, I've taken my depression out on my friends before
Yeah.
without even knowing it. And they don't know what's going on. They just think I'm being an asshole. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's,
It's tough. And it's a scale. I thought of it as like this scale between him and I. We're both on
yeah,
the depression scale, and sometimes one person has it more than another. And for me, like our vows, just like the fact that we were married and this was our first year of marriage, and like through better, worse, sickness and health, rich or poor, all that stuff, like that, I meant that shit. And I was just like, it is defeating when I feel like I have to say everything all the time in black and white and hand it to the person on a silver platter. Sometimes I wish they would just be a little bit more aware of their surroundings. If I have to
yeah,
ask every time for somebody to do something, it defeats the purpose of them being there.
yeah. What was the breaking point for you?
The breaking point for me was when, oh, it's hard to tell. I wasn't happy when I found out that he failed the firefighting exam. And then I found out that he had oh yes. The breaking point for me was when I found out that he had an account for the sugar daddy thing. And which is fine. Like I was a webcam model. We all were aware of that. I started an OnlyFans when that became a thing. The thing is though, it was so weird that he had done he said it, oh, I was just trying to find a way to make money. It's okay, but like literally I do this. I've been doing this for
Yeah,
years. I've been selling myself online. Like I've got some pointers and tips, and for a long time you didn't even want to talk to me about this stuff because like you were jealous or felt weird about it, and now you're doing it behind my back. Like this is just so weird. I don't care that you're doing it. Why didn't you tell me? It doesn't make sense why you didn't tell me because I'm like the most understanding person. Like I am all ears all the time. And he knew that too. And he didn't have a good reason. And he never had a good reason of why he didn't tell me something till 9, 10 months later. And so I was just like, I can't with this. I can't physically rip the words out of your mouth. And if you're not going to tell me, like, I can't with this anymore.
Did you try and get him like into therapy? Try and get him any alternative help? Like just wouldn't take it?
He half-assed tried. He did therapy, but it was whenever he felt like he needed therapy, he would do like a Zoom session with her. And then one day he thought that something was happening for me. Like the one time he went in person, he thought like something dramatic was happening in our relationship. And so he left therapy early. And I'm like, no, that's when you need to be there. It's like in these moments. And it was
Yeah.
frustrating because all of the things that he needed to do for himself, I would tell him to do these things. And he didn't do them until he left or until I left. And now he's doing them. Now he's doing all of those things.
Do you think he didn't want to do them, or he was just like a didn't know how?
I
What's your take
don't
on
think he
that?
knew how. And I
Uh,
think the fact that I was there and such an open communicator, I think he was looking for me to help him with it, but not help him with it. Because he's not one to take anybody's advice. Like he
I noticed
learns
that.
on his own. And
Yeah. Yeah.
because he's always done everything on his own. So I completely get that. But if you decide to put a ring on it and you want to do that with somebody, then got to change your behaviors a little bit. So yeah, I tried, but yeah, it was just, and then I was like, how about not sleeping until noon and only drinking coffee all day? I know you can't go to the gym, but there's a playground right around the corner and we can go do a playground workout. Or my mom buys this workout app online. Let's move the living room table and let's do it together. And that, and then he had a special diet. So we never ate meals together even. And I couldn't cook for him. And I love cooking. I'm Lebanese, like we feed people. And
Yeah.
it's just there was just so many things that we couldn't do together because he had chosen to live a different lifestyle and didn't want to combine them at all.
So there was no middle ground there at all.
Yeah.
No, I understand like the gym thing because that's my sanctuary out of the house too. I don't want to work out at home. I want to go to a gym because that's my space. I can put on some music. I can listen to a podcast. Like I can get away from everybody for an hour and a half. I get that part. But yeah, I can understand how you got. It's a pandemic. You guys aren't going anywhere. Like you can't have the same diet, the same lifestyle because the whole world is shut down.
Yeah.
You may as well try new things.
It's not
You know?
like you're singled out, Devin. It's like
Yeah.
everybody's doing this.
Yeah, we did a similar thing. My wife loves to cook. I like to eat. So but we would like go in the kitchen. We'd open a bottle of wine together. Like we just make something. Like it
And
was,
then you can talk about
yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
Yeah, and he was always in this room and I was always in that room. It was like the pandemic, we just got farther. We lived like a totally different schedule. Like I wake up at 8 a.m. every day, or it's earlier than that now, but 8 a.m. is like the
yeah,
latest I'm in bed. And if I'm in bed, it's because somebody's in bed with me and we're like watching a movie and it's like a rainy day or something. And
yeah.
but yeah, it was just like we never did anything together anymore.
So you're like living two separate lives under the same roof
Under a very
during your pen.
small roof apartment with
Yeah.
5 dogs and no backyard.
You guys had five
He had
dogs?
three and I have my two. And he has three big ones and I've got one big one and one small one.
Wow.
And so
I didn't
I
know
was
you.
the one going to the park all day, every day. I would go to Shawnee Mission Park for 3, 4 hours and hang out by the water and have this beautiful day. And I'd get home and he's still sleeping. And I would ask him to come with me. There was always a reason why he couldn't.
So looking back on that situation, is there anything you would have done differently dealing with his what he was going through with his depression? Is there anything you would have done differently?
Wouldn't have gotten married. I wish we would have dated for a lot longer and slower. I think we would have lasted. I think we would have been able to overcome all of these things if we just would have taken it slower. It was just like he's a hopeless romantic and so am I. And I'd pretty much like given up on, I
Yeah.
just didn't want to look anymore. And like he was swept off of his feet and I think he still is, but um
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and I know that he still wants it and I know why he wanted it that fast. I just wish we would have slowed it down because like now, I think it's only really on my side where it's like trust has to be rebuilt if that was ever to go down that road again. I'm not saying that it would never be a possibility. I mean, he's a really good guy and he still wants to, it's frustrating. He wants to do all the things I need him to be doing if he was my husband. Or I needed him to be doing then. He's like offering
Yeah.
them
Yeah.
now.
So let's go back and talk about Amanda Pierce for a minute. So you think about, I've heard a lot today. You think about all the shittiest, darkest things that have happened to you over your life, and I have never heard anything like this. And I'm old. I've been everywhere.
You're not
Um,
old.
getting a little bit. What has all this taught you about yourself?
It's taught me I'm resilient. It's taught me that I am capable of a lot more than I thought I was. I honestly don't know how or where it comes from because people have asked me before how I've maintained like a positive outlook or tried to see the silver linings and all of the bullshit. I I don't know. I don't know where it comes from and I don't know why it hasn't wavered. If anything, like every heartbreak I've had has just made me want to be in love that much more. Like I'm just resilient and I'm just capable of a lot. And damn it, I'm gonna live until I die of old age. And that's what's gonna happen. And I'm gonna do all the things that I know I was put on this earth to do. And there's gonna be a lot of other shit that happens. Honestly, with my life, it's like Murphy's Law. Like what can go wrong fucking goes wrong. It's honestly incredible, like the
Yeah.
amount of shit that goes wrong in the simplest of tasks. But there's just so much more to live for. And there's so many things to live for that depend on me. Like my mom, my dogs, my family.
So if you think back to how you were, like your first big traumatic event was at 14, and you go through periods of life where it's you try and understand what happened, you're angry, you're upset, you're depressed, sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down. Do you think you'd get to where you are today? Okay, so so going back to when you were 14, like super traumatic thing that happened to you, and then you go through life and it's one shitty thing after another. Sometimes you're angry, sometimes you're upset. Do you think you'd be where you are today, like positive and happy with and this really awesome outlook on life? It's super cool. Did you expect that? No?
No. When I look back to the quiet, depressed, walk through the hallways like this,
Yeah.
wear black, I was a cutter. I yeah, I did not ever think that I was gonna be happy. I just thought like it was just gonna be this depressing decline into adulthood. And yeah, I at that point I had the only two male figures in my life were my dad and this guy, and my dad hadn't been the best always either. No, I did not expect this at all. And I'm thoroughly and happily surprised that it did.
I'm surprised too. Anybody else that went through what you did would be, they'd be struggling. Not gonna lie.
And there's
Like
been
I've,
times, not gonna lie, I've been really down, really depressed, like just sitting on my bathroom floor, like just crying for hours and just like being like, is this it? Is this what life is supposed to be? Like, it's been hard. And there's definitely been a lot of heartbreak and a lot of tears and a lot of disappointment. It's been the thing that helped me get out of that disappointment and that cycle is realizing that I have what I need, that I can give myself the things that I need, and I don't have to like find it in a man. I don't have to find it in a best girlfriend because I've never really had one of those. And I'm fucking broke as hell right now. But I'm gonna have money someday, and I have what I need. That's been helpful. And definitely movies. Oh my God, I swear by it. It's my therapy.
I was going to ask you, like, what are you doing now for therapy? Do you see professional help? Obviously, you watch a fuck ton of movies, but what else? Do you work out still? Do you go to therapy? Medication?
No medication, healthy diet, not drinking right now. For me, that's what's working. I just honestly, like on a science chemical level, it's like just giving me anxiety the next day. I literally don't know why. I'm
Yeah,
like, I feel fine. There's nothing wrong. I've met all my deadlines. Like, why am I feeling anxious? And so it's just like an uncomfortable
yeah,
feeling. So I just don't have a desire to feel that. Music. I'm not going to a professional therapist right now, unfortunately, because I don't have time. I would like to try hypnosis, though. That's my next form
interesting.
of
Huh.
therapy. Yes. I would like to
Huh.
try some
Okay.
hypnosis. And I really would like to go back to Peru and do ayahuasca. I'm not a big person in thinking that let's take some psychedelics and figure it out. I've
Yeah.
never gone down that route or been really supportive of it. However, when I did go there and lived with my sister, I skipped the whole tourist route because she had been living there for a couple years, and I just went right into society. And I feel like it would be a good thing to do when I'm not feeling in a super traumatic place, when I feel like I need to let go of some of that stuff, is when I would want to do it, not go through
Yeah.
it. I want to go through it sober and process it. I would like to get back into therapy when I'm done with school in May, but, and then probably, I'm going to say 35. I'd like to 35 go and do that and just have a release of things.
Yeah. Just all that negative energy just gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of indigenous people and the way that they treat things naturally.
Let's just say you have a time machine. Again, going back to that traumatic event when you're 14 and every subsequent event, like, what advice would you give your previous self in managing all this bullshit?
I would say tell my family, like
Yeah.
instantly right now, get up, talk to them, go tell them. And then tell them
Yeah.
everything from here on out and be like really honest and open. Keep your family by your side as a support system. And if you don't have that with them, then find one. Like, but honestly, like the family's the best one. And yeah, I needed, like, in the shower when I got that text sneaking back in my house at 5:30 in the morning, take a shower. I wish I could go back in time to that moment, grip my phone out of my hand, and go immediately tell my mom and go and get a rape kit and put that bastard in jail. That's the moment that would have changed my life forever.
Yeah. Yeah. It's again, I've never been speechless hearing someone tell me a story like this before. Like, it's just, yeah, it's heartbreaking, to say the least. But
Thank you.
you're strong.
Thanks.
Like, it's not to sound like cliche, but what you've been through and where you are now, it is an inspiration to a lot of people, especially those that don't have a voice, that have been through similar things. It's like they need to talk to people because people want to help for the
Yeah,
most part.
absolutely. I've had random
Yeah,
people, I have no idea who they are, reach out to me on Instagram and just be like, thanks for
yeah,
saying this out loud. And like just talking about it.
outside of all of this, what's next for you? Where do you go from here?
I'm gonna save the world.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna fight climate change and I'm going to figure out some way to stop putting harmful carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. I don't know. I'm gonna come up with something and then I'm gonna leave my mark on this world scientifically and really just, I love learning. And I've got that from my mom, and I've learned so much in the last 2 years, and I'm really proud of myself. And I've accomplished, it's just, it's looking around at my friends who are like getting married and having kids and buying houses. Not that I want that. It's just always been this like comparing me to other people my age and what I haven't done.
Yeah.
And I didn't do it at the right time frame. I should have been graduated from college at 24 and had a job by 25. And so it's nice to be like caught up to everyone else. Not that I ever really wanted to be there at that
Yeah.
time frame because I have a lot of other experiences that they don't have with traveling and stuff. But it feels good to be like, okay, I'm going to be able to financially support myself. And also, it's something that I'm so incredibly passionate about. So let's fucking do this. Let's go up against the government.
I believe you, and I don't want to be that government. Amanda, thank you so much for coming on today. Just wow.
Thank you for having me.
Wow.
This has been great. This was like a nice therapy session for me too.
You have my number, so anytime you want to chat, like my phone is always on.
Thank you.
And yeah, for all of you out there, please just talk to somebody. That's all I got to fucking say. I'm out of words today.
Yeah. Talk to
But
some millions and billions of people out there. Somebody should
yeah,
talk to
yeah.
you.